Shima Ibrahim Theo, lecturers of CSP 600 course, and to all present here today. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good morning to all ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Effective Academic Writing webinar. I am Nuairah Aini binti Ahmad Kushairi, your host for today. First and foremost, let us recite Suratul Al-Fatiha to begin our webinar. Al-Fatiha. As everyone is well informed with today's topic, this program aims to give exposure to final year students about effective academic writing for the ongoing final year project and to help students in searching for research articles from virtual databases such as Science Direct, IEEE Explore, and many more. For your information, ladies and gentlemen, our speaker for today is a lecturer in built environment under the Department of Civil Engineering, Surveying and Construction Management at Kingston University, London. She has a PhD in urban heat island mitigating strategy using thermal solar collector system embedded in roads and pavement from the University of Sheffield. She is also a former student of UITM, where she took a master's degree in urban development and a bachelor's degree in architecture. Now, without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Siti Diana Nabilah Mohd Nasir to begin today's webinar. Please welcome.
Hello, Assalamualaikum, and a very good morning to everyone. First of all, I would like to say thank you to UITM committee, especially to Dr. Raiha and Dr. Noashima for having me here. And of course, I would like to thank to all students for attending this webinar. To be honest, I try my best to make it a bit more informal, and maybe there are some rojak maybe language in the session, but of course I try my best to be more influenced with it. I will try to share my screen. Please let me know whether you can see. Sorry, what is this? Whether you can see my screen, yeah? So can you see now?
Yes, we can see the
Yes,
slides.
okay, all right, okay. Thank you very much. So again, Assalamualaikum and a very good morning, everyone. I'm so sorry because I just, here is just past midnight. So, it's still night here, but then I can consider it a morning session. So this is actually the topic that that is given to me by Dr. Raiha on effective academic writing. Of course, we'll go through the outline or the structure of today's webinar. As the moderator has introduced me, I am Diana Mohd Nasir. I'm a lecturer in built environment. So to be honest, I just recently joined Kingston University under the Department of Civil Engineering, Surveying, Construction Management. So yes, I am very happy that finally I can contribute something to UITM by having this webinar. So this is the structure of today. The first of all, of course, I would just want to share a little bit more about myself. And then we'll touch on academic writing and how to make it effective. And then I will touch on the structure. We will learn to understand about the structure of the academic work, particularly theses, articles, or reports. And then how can we start to write academic writing? And I will touch on the search engine, recommended search engine, the database, using the keywords or ideas that you already generated for your project to support your academic writing. And I will touch on literature review. What is a literature review and how to make your literature review is effectively conducted. And then I'll touch on database creation. Not before that, sorry. So there are two methods that I'm going to touch. So basically, if you search from online, to be honest, maybe you cannot really find direct review and writing method. But based on my personal experience as someone already authored in journal articles and theses, I suggest to use these two methods. One is direct review and writing. So you search the keywords from the published materials, and then you turn it into sentences. Another one, you can create your own database, and then having that, you maybe somehow like putting everything in your own database before writing. And then before we can conclude today's session, so I'm going to touch on similarity and plagiarism and how you can check it. Then we conclude, and then I do have some references. You can go through that. So just a little bit more about myself. So I'm one of the UiTM Di Hatiku graduates. I'm so proud of it. So yes, definitely, I love UiTM. I love all the experience I had in UiTM. I did my BSc in architecture from FSPU between 2005 to 2009 as a full-time student. And then after that, after graduation, I started working with the architecture firm just for 1 year before I jumped to construction companies. And then I worked there about 4 years. At the same time, I did my MSc in Urban Development and Management in FSPU between 2011 to 2013 as a part-time student. And then graduate from MSc. Then I started, thinking about switching myself from industry to the world of academia. So I wanted to do my PhD. So from one of the modules that I took from my MSc course, it touched on urban heat island effect. So I'm very interested in the subject and how we can actually mitigate the UHI effect. So I analyzed the performance of road pavement solar collector system. So you can imagine having cooling pipes, you integrate with the roads, and then that's where the surface temperature of the road can be reduced, and simultaneously the nearby air temperature can be reduced as well. That's where the UHI somehow can be mitigated indirectly. And then after graduating from my PhD, I went back about 1 year in Malaysia, going back to Malaysia. I worked with the University of Malaya as a research assistant just for about 6 months before I received an offer from my previous PhD supervisor. Then he became my line manager. So he offered me a postdoctoral researcher under UKRI grant. So I worked with him about 4 years between 2018 to 2022. So I went first university as a postdoc. I went to University of Strathclyde before I moved to University of Hull. Then last 6 months, I got a new position as a lecturer in built environment. So somehow I switching myself from totally as a researcher to a lecturer. So I need to teach more rather than doing research. So anyone would like to, you want to see some of my, my profiles, you can just click on here. Another thing I would like to touch on, of course, I'm not very good in publications, in publishing works, but since 2019, somehow I authored and co-authored about 17 research articles, and all of these articles are under Q1 journals. And the total citation I got about 308, which is not good, to be honest. Don't look at this, but I just want to share some experience. So most probably maybe can motivate all of you who wanted to do maybe masters or PhD later on. So I hope that this can inspire you. The H index about 11 and I-10 index about 11. So you can click on this link if you want to go and check myself, but don't really have to. um, Next one. Okay. So we can start by, I can start by introducing about academic writing. Before I touch on effective academic writing, we just have to understand about what is academic writing. So academic writing somehow is like how you can communicate your ideas, your thoughts or research or your project. So you want to somehow communicate this to academic community. And it must be in a form or a structure or outline which is acceptable academically and scientifically. It's very important to have that. What is the difference between academic writing form with, as compared to a non-academic writing form? To be honest, it's almost similar. We have the introduction part, of course, and we have the main body, we have the conclusion. If you read a storybook, you can always see the same pattern. We have the introduction part, we have the main body. The main body is where you can see the highlights or the excitement, maybe the climax parts, which sparks it make you feel interested about it. And then everything should be end, or it must have a conclusion. So almost the same between academic writing and non-academic writing. But of course, what makes academic writing different is the way you write it. You make sure that you write it according to, a system that is created based on that. I just want to show you one example. So I take this paper basically, climatic analysis of a passive cooling technology for the built environment in hot countries. So this is one of the papers that I co-authored with other artists. I just take the abstract part. So if you, of course, I believe that you have learned about abstract. So abstract somehow is like a short summary, or just to have one short paragraph of like of the whole work that you have in one published in one academic writing, for example, but you shorten it into one paragraph, so it becomes abstract. Even if you close up to this abstract, you can identify the introduction part of it. You can see the main body that contains the the key arguments, what things that you want to achieve, what are the methodology, for example. And then it must have the conclusion part. So the conclusion, of course, the things that you want to highlight. What are the key points what are the points that you want to highlight in the work? So even from the abstract, you can see it must contain these three forms. It must have this form. It must have the introduction, it must have the main body, it must have the conclusion. Next one. Okay. Okay. So I just want to share with you the common types under academic writing. So, of course, you will know about academic books. So if you go to library or maybe electronic library, you can always find books where you can refer. So academic books, it means a long form publication. So it has maybe around 100 to 1,000 page, and usually must be certified with ISSN. It is a-depth academic research, and usually the authors are the very well established academics in their field. So most probably are professors, maybe associate professors that wrote this book. And it must have more than one. If let's say this book is well recognized, so maybe it has updated versions, more than just one volume, one version of it. And then another type, we have compilation of academic book chapters. So somehow it's like having like multiple piece of works and to be compiled in one by a number of authors. And then, of course, it will be written according to sectional topics. So we have different sectional topics, and then the authors will contribute according to that sectional topics. And then it will create like having like, this compilation, it will turn like an academic book. It has about 100 to 1,000 page, it can be. And then it must be certified with ISSN. It's quite similar to academic book. In-depth academic research, but commonly authored, as I said, academic book, usually it is written by well-established academician. Here, it can be between intermediate to well-established academicians in their field. It can be PhD researchers, it can be senior lecturers, associate professors, and so on. And then we have another type, which is thesis, or your final year report, a final year project report, or dissertation, we call it. So why we need to have a thesis? contribute to knowledge. It's almost the same as this, but in a lower version. So basically, like us, like the university students, it at different levels, at undergraduate level and postgraduate level, somehow you are compulsory to produce a dissertation, a thesis, in order for you to pass the overall courses. Okay, so it contributes to knowledge, and usually it will be licensed under the university copyright. The total words around 10,000 to 80,000. It must have the originality and the novelty. Of course, it depends on the submission level, whether is a undergraduate project or a postgraduate project. Of course, the novelty or the originality aspect will be depending on the submission level. The novelty usually you will find in the method statement, or maybe the set of data that are used in the thesis, maybe the analysis part, maybe the outputs. So it must contain some kind of novelty, originality that should be highlighted in here. And usually, of course, you cannot avoid to have proposal defense and viva voce, or oral presentation, or you have to submit it. It must be defended, it must be reviewed, and must be assessed. So the next type, we have research articles. So you can imagine, maybe one section from your thesis can be extracted, can be taken out, and you produce a research article and submit to journals. So you can imagine that. And usually, the piece of work here is like it's very recent. It's a recent piece of work. Usually, it's with confirmed findings. You can see consistency in the results. So you're very confident with the findings, and it has license. It must be licensed under the publishing copyright, and of course, commonly provided with ISSN. The total words about 6,000 to 10,000 words. So maybe when you produce the manuscript, about 15 to 30 pages overall. Journal ranking, it must be ranked between Q1 and Q4. I will touch on that later. It must have the originality aspect or the novelty aspect. I mean, commonly it is actually in the method or the set of data or the analysis part of it or the outputs, yeah? Why you need to have this? In order for you to avoid rejection from the reviewers. So when you submit your manuscript, it will be, you will submit to the journal, and it must go through peer review process. If let's say, usually like about 3 reviewers, if let's say 2 reviewers are okay with that, then it will give you the time for you to revise it and resubmit. And if let's say 1 is okay, 2 are not okay, most probably it will be rejected at the first stage. And then the authors can be among researchers like me, like you guys, or investigators from both academia and industry. Review articles are almost the same as research articles, but review articles somehow, uh, if you see the originality or the novelty of it in terms of how the reviews are carried out in the work and the quality of the reviews. And of course, it depends on the topics or the what kind of subject that you're presenting. And of course, it's a recent piece of works, and the total of words is more than research articles. It's between 8,000 to 40,000 words. It's almost up to 40 pages, and it must go through peer review process. For conference proceeding, somehow it's a shorter version of research articles. So it's between 5,000 words or more or less 5 to 6 pages in total. But the problem with conference proceedings, the method or the analysis or the results are not confirmed, not finalized. So it's not something that you can confirm. You feel, you how to say, it might not be finalized, and uh, it might not have consistency in the findings. So, and then um, it still go through the review process, but the one that will review your submission is the specified conference committee. So not are the one coming from the academic or scientific reviewers. So you can say that, okay, it is accepted, but then if I mean, my preference, I always go for research articles and review articles as compared to conference proceedings. But if let's say you cannot find from research articles or review articles, might as well you can go for conference proceedings. So this is the recommended structure of form. So I just give an example for technical thesis. I'm not going to touch on, the thesis that are being submitted under arts and humanities. So since that you are computer science students, so definitely must be technical. So this is just, just to show you a recommended structure or form or outlines of a technical thesis. So of course you need to have a title of the report, definitely. And then you need to have the abstract. So the abstract, as I told you, is about the summary of your thesis. So you have to make it in a just short paragraph, around 300 to 500 words. I mean, depending on the institute, what is required by your institution. And then must have table of content with the page numbers, and then the list of figures. You need to have that list of tables. And if let's say you have equations in your FYP, definitely you have to have it listed. And then abbreviation, so or short form of certain words, so you don't want to repeat the same thing. Maybe like, for example, computational fluid dynamics, you don't want to repeat computational fluid dynamics every single time. You can just short form it as CFD, so you can use CFD in a couple of, I mean, try to shorten instead of using, like longer words. And then after you have that, then you can have section 1, which is introductions. Very common to have that. And your introduction section will contain about 10 to 15% of the overall outline. And then you're going to have the main body. So the main content of the work contributes about 60 to 80% of the total thesis. It must have the section 2, which is literature review. Section 3, your methodology section. Section 4, maybe results and findings, and maybe you want to have section 5 as a further discussion of your findings of all your results. This is where you will put you will highlight the originality and the novelty of your work. If let's say your work, you think that you want to, you're confident with your findings, for example, so somehow you will submit to journals articles, to journals, and then make it as a research article, for example. So and then you will turn this one as, as part of the journal copyright. Or if you think that your work, somehow you produce prototypes or or new models that that you cannot find from from the published works, for example. And later on, after you submit your thesis, most probably you can apply intellectual patent based on your work. Okay. And then in blue section, you can see section 6, conclusion and recommendation. And sometimes you can have section 7, which is future work. So the conclusion part contains about 10 to 15% of the overall. And you will end it with a list of reference. Of course, remember, at the main body, in your introduction section, you must have references. That is part of the academic writing. If you don't have references, means that you just, most probably, you just take things out of nowhere. So you must have citation, and you have to have a list of reference at the last part. And sometimes you can provide appendix. For example, your work involve some lab work, for example, and you require to follow certain safety and health procedures. So you want to have that procedures to be part of your thesis, then you can put it under appendix, the last part of your thesis. The next one I will touch on, just to define every section of it. So we have section 1. Okay, I will touch on the introduction section. So what is introduction? So basically, this is what I recommend to have. Background of the intended work. So you have to tell what's actually things that you want to see. What's actually things that you want to highlight in your work. you need to have problem statement. What what is actually the problem here? And then why do you want to solve this problem? So based on this problem statement, it will help you to have the motivation of the work. So the motivation of the work, why do you think that you want to solve this problem, basically? So you need to have your the motivation of the work. Then you will see the aims and the objectives. You will write down your aims and objectives. So aims is somehow what is actually things that you want to achieve by the end of the thesis. And the objectives is like what things that you need to do to achieve your aim. And then you can have an early hypothesis. So basically, if you use model A, you will get these results, for example. And you want to test having model A plus model B, and you are expecting to have um, the hypothesis as this, for example. So you can have your early hypothesis part of your introduction, and last but not least, maybe you can outline or you can outline what are needed in your thesis, or the overview of the thesis structure. So you can have that, and maybe it can be supported by having a flowchart or diagram. So the next one, section 2. What are actually things that required under section 2? It is recommended to have the introduction to the literature review. You can focus on the outline of it. For example, here you can say section 2.1 will discuss on the definition of topic A, and then section 2.2 will discuss on the historical overview of topic B. For example, this is just an example. Once you touch on definition, maybe you can touch on the historical overview of maybe certain subjects or topics or technologies. And then you can go a bit deeper. You can review of what have been carried out recently. So like all recent maybe technologies or subjects can be reviewed under section 2.3, for example. And then maybe 2.4, you can have a review of advantages or drawbacks or potential of certain works. And the last, then section 2.4 and 2.5, we can have a review of maybe performance or efficiency of deficiency of certain works in terms of capacity, range, materials, usage, and etc. And it is recommended actually by my former PhD to conclude it with the literature gap. So what have you seen is lacking from the published works? Then you have to highlight in the literature gap. Most probably you are the one that fill in this gap. So this is actually the highlight of your literature review. After you have reviewed all this work, then you will conclude with literature gap. And it's not just words, of course. You must support with figures, diagrams. If you have tables, equations, models, references, you must have that as well. And then we move to section 3, which is the method section. Recommended to have outline. Maybe you can mention section 3.1 discuss about describing about the chosen method of the work. So section 3.1, you can start by having explanation or description about your method, whether you choose to mix between qualitative and quantitative methods, quantitative data in the work. Maybe you can describe about the materials that you chose, the parameters. Maybe you have prototype. Maybe you involved with laboratory work, or there will be no laboratory work, but you want to focus on numerical modeling instead, or you want to optimize certain mathematical models. So you have to explain explicitly and implicitly of your chosen method. Okay. Next one, you have to explain why you think your chosen method is ideal or optimum to carry out your work. And you can support this by having, maybe you can bring some literature review that you have reviewed before in section 2 and put it here. And maybe you can just re-highlight the literature gap. And you can conclude by having this. Of course, not everything that you can cover in your method. It must be maybe have some kind of limitation. There are things that you can include in your project. There are things that you cannot include in the project. So the limitation can be because of what? Maybe your your institution cannot provide certain materials. You can only consider certain materials or certain procedures or certain equipment, or you want to make it more cost effective, so you don't want to waste you know, there are like restricted budget for your project, for example, or restricted time, or you are lacking in terms of equipment, so you cannot use certain equipment. So you have to highlight the limitation of your work under section 3 methodology. The next one is section 4.5. I just mix it in one, results and discussion. Recommended to have the outline, as I said. 4.5, 4.1, for example, discuss about these. 4.2, discuss about these and that. Okay. So what is needed under section results and discussion? So you have to explain your findings. Of course, you have to aid it with diagrams, figures, proof from the work that you have conducted. You have to look, okay, remember that you have put your early hypothesis in section 1, and then you have to look, you have to somehow discuss, is there any consistency in the findings against your early hypothesis. But sometimes it is very unexpected to have negative findings or negative results. But if let's say you have time, if let's say you can revise and change your method or change your parameters, for example, you can do that to make it positive, to turn it into positive findings. But sometimes you have limitation in terms of the time, of cost, and things like that. So it is, you cannot change the unexpected things. But what you can do is to explain and try to defend it. Maybe you can support by support with the previous work, what you have reviewed in section 2, and you can discuss it, discuss your findings with this. And of course, under this section, you have to highlight interesting findings, usually, of course, positive ones. And these interesting findings is the one that will fill in the gap of the knowledge. And this is the one that you're going to contribute to the academic society. So under section 6 and 7, or the conclusion part, the recommendation and future part, so somehow you have to start by having a summary of the work. You can just touch a bit more, from the beginning. What is the background of the work? What is the problem statement? What is the intended aims and the method the method that you chose? Just like a small summary, like your abstract, but then you have like one early paragraph of the summary of the work. And then you will conclude your findings, but it should against research objectives. So remember, you have aims and then you have objectives. So the objectives are the one, are somehow things that will help you to achieve your aims. Yeah. So for example, you have objective 1, to investigate A plus B, for example. Then your conclusion will be explained according to your research objectives. Next one, if let's say you have recommendation, so I mean, it is recommended to have recommendation part of the work to somehow, because these are, I mean, this is among the questions that are being asked to me. So if let's say, I mean, your assessors can actually ask you, if let's say you are given the time to improve your work, what will you suggest? So you have to have a recommendation to improve your work. So maybe are things that you cannot work on. I mean, you cannot work in your work in your project, but you can, somehow you have to, you can do that one maybe later. And recommendation can be supported from the literature review. Maybe you have reviewed before, or you can cite new published works in this section. Future work, as I said, if let's say there are things that you cannot, because you have limitation, you have your project somehow have limitation. There are things that you cannot carry out in your project. So you can put everything under future work. The works that you may further carry out in future to improve the work. Maybe you consider to change the parameters, maybe change the methods, change using different models or materials, etc. So this is just to show to somehow to highlight to you. Let me just okay. So this is just to highlight to everyone the tips on how to select correct publication for correct sections of your thesis. So remember you have section 1, which is the introduction. If let's say you have background and problem statements, this is what I recommend. You can pick on news articles or maybe projection reports from world agenda, for example, legal statements or agreement, or maybe World Organization Committee reports such as United Nations. You can make it as part of your background and problem statement. If let's say you have early hypothesis, you can choose academic books or book chapters, but try your best to find updated version of this. Under section 2, which is your literature review, if let's say you want to define something, you can choose from academic books or book chapters, maybe reports, updated reports, legal statements. About historical overview, yes, the same thing. But if let's say it is about review of, for example, a review of recent development or technologies or inventions, what I suggest, go for research articles, review articles, book chapters, and conference papers, and try your best to try your best to find maybe about 5 to 10 years back, maximum up to 20 years. Try not to exceed 20 years. Try your best to find like the very very recent ones. Proposed method under section 3. If let's say you want to propose certain methods, for example, this almost the same for review of recent development or technologies. You can find it from book chapters, research articles, research review articles, and is it if let's say you can find it within 5 to 10 years back, which is very good. But as I said, maximum up to 20 years. Okay. So we have touched on academic writing, types of it, maybe the structure, the form of it, and we have defined every section under the outline. So this is just some tips to make your academic writing effective. So the first one, I always suggest to have a captivating title of the writing. So in your title, the title of your FIP or your dissertation, try to highlight what is the originality, what is the novelty of your work, or maybe you can put the main intention. So just to make sure that you can capture the reader's attention somehow to look at the title. Oh, okay, this is very interesting. So that's one tip. Second tip, attract the readers by having a comprehensive abstract. So as I said, abstract is like a summary of your FYP or your thesis. So try to attract by having that. So imagine like you read a storybook. So from the title, okay, the title is very good. And then I go to the summary of it. Oh, this is very interesting. Then they will read the next page, for example. So readers or reviewers or markers are the one that you have to capture the attention. So try to make it as as interesting as possible. And then you must have abbreviation. Everything's it's defined and will not confuse the readers. And then you must have clear introduction. Uh, ha- of course, you have to state the problem, any research questions, the motivation of the work, and then you must have very clear aims and objective. What is the aims and the objective to achieve your aim? Yeah, and then well structured writing. Of course, it must have a good narrative, especially in the literature review part, the method statement, and when you discuss and analyze the results. And then language, straightforward, concise, because it's a scientific and technical writing. For non-scientific or non-technical writing, most probably it has their own way of writing it. But for technical writing, usually very straightforward language. Try to avoid I or we or you to be used. For example, you want to say, I want to okay, this is a non-academic statement, yeah. I want to investigate A. Instead of using that, you can say A will be investigated in my work. A will be investigated in this work. So you have to use a technical language somehow for to make your academic writing effective. And then you have to aid your writing by having visuals. Most probably you can have flowcharts, figures, examples, equations will help as well. And then the references. It must have to choose the high quality one, updated one, and should be relevant to the topics that you want to discuss. And I always suggest to go for good journal ranking, which is go for Q1 first before you go to Q2, Q3, or Q4. And of course, for your F5T report, as what I've been told by Dr. Raiha, it will be it must be less than 30% of the similarity. So make sure that you write your report within this acceptable range. And then what I can suggest, try to paraphrase the idea and keep rewrite it, keep revise it to make sure that all these ideas or like what you have reviewed later on it will become your own words rather than and then you can minimize the similarity in the statement. Yeah. So these are just some examples of visuals that can aid or you can assist your academic writing. You can have a flow chart diagram, maybe to show to show your proposed method, for example. Maybe you can have a process flow chart. Maybe one is a problem, and then go for types of algorithm that will go to the system, and then will give the solutions. For example, this is just example, yeah. And then input and output process diagram, you can have that. Or you can maybe have the evidence from your experimental work in laboratory or using prototypes. You must have evidence out of it. Or if let's say you conduct a numerical model, so you must have plotted graph, for example. This will definitely will help your academic writing. Okay, now I will touch on general ranking. So you will see Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. Q4, yeah. So it means quartile. So it is about quartile ranking, which is based on impact factors. So if let's say you choose quartile 1, it means that uh, the I mean the journals under Q1 is actually being positioned as the top 25%. So that's why I always choose to go for Q1 first before I go for the second one. So Q2, it means that it is between 25 to 50%, at the top 25 to 50%. Quartile 3, Q3, it will be about, it is actually top 50 to 75%, and quarter 4 is actually the bottom 25%. So and there are some journals are not ranked, so it's like out of this league, by the way. So try your best to find Q1. I mean, find the works that are ranked under Q1 first. If you cannot find Q1, then you can go a bit lower. Yeah. So how to check on journal ranking? So I always go to Shimago institution ranking. So you can search from here, and then you can put the journal title. So I give you one example. For example, IEEE transaction on robotic. So I search in here, then it will give me this. So I click on IEEE transaction on robotics, and then I scroll down until I can see this. So it is Q1, quarter 1, under the subject of computer science application, and the SGR score, which is 3.546. If you see more than maybe about 12 or 20, so it means that that gene is very, very good. So the higher the number of SGR is actually the better. So I will touch on how we can start to write an academic writing or statement. Yeah. So of course you need to have ideas. Ideas should come first. You must be curious. You must find problems for you to solve, and you must be motivated to solve these problems. Having all this, definitely you have to collage in, maybe you can start by having a blank paper and try to collate your ideas in one, and then you have to establish keywords, and then those keywords you have to search it, and then you will identify whether these keywords are relevant. I mean, the one that you search, the academic, the published materials that you search, whether they are relevant or not, whether they are relevant or not for your work. Okay, if let's say they are relevant, so you will keep that one as the evidence of the research. If they are not relevant, most probably maybe you can go back to keywords, try to refine your keywords and research again until you find better evidence. Then if let's say you have all this evidence and you think, okay, this is good, so you can start compiling and structuring your work into a piece of writing. So in order for you to, to prepare an academic writing such as FYP, dissertation, or maybe a research article, you might think that everything is smooth sailing. You whatever you plan will always, you can achieve everything in just one go. Not really. Sometimes there are things that you have to revise. For example, you have to revise your aims, you have to revise the objectives because your project supervisor asks you to revise. And most probably assessors find there is lacking in terms of the originality in your method, so you have to reevaluate maybe some parts of it. You have to reevaluate your literature review. You have to revise your methods. For example, maybe there are some laboratory equipment that you need, but it's not available for you to use, and you find negative results, and you cannot achieve, maybe sometimes you cannot achieve some of your targets according to your expectation. So it will not be smooth sailing. You will expect maybe some hurdles or obstacles along the way for you, before you can finally submit your FYP. But it doesn't mean that having all these limitation, obstacles, or revision, it doesn't mean that it is not successful. This is actually the real success. But what I uh, what I can advise you, try to record and report all this process in detail and explain it implicit and explicitly. So I just want to give you just one example. So I will use the same topic example until the end of today's webinar. So this is actually somehow, the title of the study that I wanted to look for. So model the prediction of 20 years output power of PV panels attached on residential roof for hot tropical climate. Okay. So this is part of my research experience. I always start by having a mind mapping. Yeah, so it will help me to solve my problem, by the way. So I have the title. So somehow what I want is actually to model the prediction within 20 years. The prediction of what? Output power from PV panels, and this PV panel will be attached to residential roof, and the climate that I'm going to choose is hot tropical. So maybe in my thesis or my FYP, I can introduce, I can start by having an introduction to solar panel technology as a renewable energy source for buildings. And then maybe I will touch why we need to opt for renewable energy source, because there are problems with non-renewable resources. The resources will be depleted, eventually depleted, and then not very clean to the environment. It creates pollution. It creates carbon emissions. And then I touch on another idea. I found another evidence saying that buildings contribute 40% of energy consumption and global carbon emissions, for example. And then Then maybe PV solar panel, since that it harvests the energy from the solar. Then I'm very interested to know how PV solar panels can be operated and how the heat to the solar panels can be transferred and can be converted into electricity. And then go a bit more deeper, uh, a bit deeper, then I'll touch on the advantage and the downside and also the potential of the PV panels. Tentatively or specifically, the application for residential buildings in hot climates. Then I expand a bit deeper. I want to see maybe some local and international case studies or examples of the PV solar applications. And then I'm very interested to know how much energy is gained and converted to electricity based on these examples or case studies. Yeah. Next one, since that the main idea is to model the, to use prediction model for 20 years. So I want to know which prediction models are used, as well as what are the parameters that required to to carry out this to carry out the prediction. And of course, I want to evaluate for long-term output power of the PV solar panel. And I want to see the coefficient of the performance of the PV panel as well. And then I start to have the motivation of work. So my motivation of work is to use the most feasible or the most accurate prediction model. Of course, the idea is to assist the decision makers, for example, maybe the key players from the industry, to accurately predict the performance of installing PV solar panels for residential buildings or homes. Yeah. So next one, based on this mind mapping, so I started to kind of drafting the aims of the work. So what is actually the aim of the work? So I want to predict the PV panel output power within 20 years, and it should be applied for rooftop of residential building, and it is meant for hot tropical climate. That is the main aim. So what is actually the main problem I want to solve? So I want to find the most accurate prediction model, and the error is very minimum, and my proposed work will be feasibly applied to integrate to national power grid. And I believe this will be the novelty of my work. So then there's another question. Any established experiment or prototype or system that I can refer in order for me to establish and to validate my work? So this is just just one example. So since that I'm very interested in solar panel, so I might contact UITM Solar Research Institute, SRI, to use their data or facilities on PV solar systems. So the closest location is actually it is within UITM Alor Gajah Melaka. So next one, the next question, how my work methodology might look like. So what I need to know is actually which prediction models have been tested to estimate the output power of P panels from the published work. So I need to carry out a literature review. I need to know prediction models that are tested to estimate this. The next one, I'm very interested to know whether these models have been tested purposely for residential buildings and for the specific climate that I'm going to conduct. I'm going to carry out, and what are the main parameters to consider for the prediction. So the next one, most probably I need to establish a preliminary model. Of course, the preliminary model will be based on a residential home or homes, and it will be this building will attach PV panels on top of it roof. And of course, I will need to validate my preliminary model using the system that I can, derive from UITM's SRI. And the validation error will be targeted between 5 to 10%. So another one, so based on this literature review, so I need to choose the most accurate prediction model, which give me the error between 5 to 10%. And then I can predict the output power in 20 years time. Of course, how can I predict this will be based on my validated preliminary model. And then there is a set of parameters that will be considered as according to this: weather condition, and the number of PV panel and size, solar radiation, daily sun hours, cloud covers, orientation angles, variation in the residential, and etc. This is just one example, yeah. And then based on the work, somehow I can extract some keywords from that. So this is just, some keywords that I extract from the title itself. Model the prediction. So prediction model, or sometimes people call it forecast model. Next is PV or photovoltaic or solar panel. The next keyword, residential or houses or homes. The next one, hot climate or hot humid, tropical, hot arid. Yeah. So having all these keywords, then we can go to search engine. The search engine that I recommend. I mean, okay, this is just an example. So under my institution, Kingston University, we have our own ICAT library search, where it is actually the search engine that is created by my institution, and we can search the ebook or the books that we can loan from the library, or we can find database as well from here. You can just type the keywords, maybe to find books or chapters or journal, or we can just click on like find a database, and then we can go through the database from this. Yeah. So if, for example, I choose to find a database, and this study, of course, the category that I'm going to choose, this is the one that will be relatable to you. So I choose computer science and mathematics. So there are about 10 database found under computer science and mathematics. And of course, each of these database are actually published, of course, for example, ACM. So ACM is the Association of Computing Science, Machinery. So they have their own digital library, which is published under their own publishing company. So if you click online access, then you will access all the published materials under ACM. So it same goes to IEEE Explore. If you click on that, of course, all the published materials that you will find under IEEE Explore will be based on the IEEE publishing company. For Science Direct and Scopus, it will be under Elsevier. Springer Link will be under Springer. For Willy, online library will be under Willy. But if you want, I'm not sure whether UITM has that, but if for example, if UITM subscribe Web of Sign, you can actually get all the published materials that are published under all these, publishing companies, all together under Web of Science. So the next one. So this is just an example. So I choose Science Direct, for example. So I choose Science Direct. So of course you can see the publishing company is under Elsevier. So all the journals will be under the company of Elsevier. So this is just, if you see here, this is actually the indication that everything will be, that you can access Science Direct. Is it okay? When you access Science Direct, somehow it is brought to you by your own institution. So if you can see this indication, it means that anything that you want to access from the Science Direct, all the published works under Science Direct will mostly are free to access, because you have to log in using your ID and your password. And all the keywords that you get before you generate before for your topic, you can search from here. Okay. So this is another example. If let's say you want to access the IEEE Explore database, so you can see here access provided by Kingston University Library, and then of course you have to, since that you log in through using your institution ID and password, and then you can search your keywords here. You can click on advanced search if you want, but of course for you to refine your searching. But this is just simple example that I would just want to show you. So what are being subscribed under UITM? Of course, there are more than that, but I just want to show you few examples. So if you go to UITM Perpustakaan Tun Abdul Razak, then it will get you to UITM e-resource collections. It has their own ebooks collection in there, and open access, e-news, and online database. If you want to access maybe Science Direct, you have to click on online database. So I really recommend for you to utilize the search engine and database that are subscribed by your institution. If you click on online database, and then of course you have to, for example, Science Direct, the first alphabet is S, then you have to click S. Or if you just want, you just want to find random, if you can just search your keywords under this and just search. So this is okay. Once you click on S here, then it will give you maybe a list of database under the alphabet S, and you can find Science Direct. So if you click on Science Direct, so of course you will go through to this link, and then the same as the one. So you will see the indication here brought to you by Mara University of Technology. So you can search your keywords under this box here. So another example, if let's say you click on so you can find IEEE Explore, and then you click on it, and then you can browse your searching under this database, and you can search your keywords here. And again, you will see the indication of access provided by UITM. Okay. So this is just example. Going back to the example that I give you, model the prediction of 20 years output power of PV panels attached on residential roof for hot tropical climate. So I have these keywords somehow, and then I put all these keywords under this, and I click on search. What I found is about 13 review articles, 13 review papers, 5 research articles, and 1 book chapters. I don't want to include conference abstract, because as I recommend, I always go for review articles or research articles and book chapters instead of conference proceedings, since that the results are not really confirmed. And then you can see here another information. So you can see these 19 published materials are published between 2008 to 2022, which is okay. So it's within 15 to 20 years back, which is good. And then next, if let's say I refine my keywords, I take out residential and hot climate, I just maintain prediction model and PV panel. So I got about 25 published materials that I want. 15 review papers, 9 research papers, and 1 book chapter. And of course, the published years between 2008 2002. If let's say I want to search from IEEE Explore database, so I just use prediction model and PV panel, for example. What I found about 5 uh, papers. So 1 research article and 4 conference proceedings. And the years of the publish, when they publish is between 2012 between 2012 and 2022, which is about 10 years back, which is good. So having all this, definitely the next step, we will start to write. Yeah. So of course we have to know, before we write, definitely we have to know what is a literature review. And before making it effective, we'll start to understand about literature review. So literature review is about having a piece of academic writing. Of course, it must demonstrate the knowledge and the understand, like what you understand about something, about one topic, and it should be placed in the context of your thesis. And it will include a critical evaluation of the topic that you're going to present in your work. It's not just reporting, but you want to critically evaluate that piece of that published work, yeah, that topic. And it is a process of reviewing the literature, and you must make it in a form of writing. So as a good practice, there are 3 tips. One, you summarize it and then you summarize and analyze the previous research, and try to identify if there are any controversial statements or maybe contested claims that you can find from that published work. So that definitely it will spark the critical thinking. So it will be good to have this. And another tip, try to highlight if there is knowledge gap exists in that published work. So the next one, I will touch on two methods. So these are the methods that I use when I was, preparing my own academic writing. So the first method is direct review and writing. So somehow it's like you get one academic writing, or like one research article, for example, and then you directly you translate, you try to you write your review directly from what you have searched and what you have read from that. But as a student, I always suggest, during my student time, I create my own database. So that, like, how can I create it? Okay, you can see there are about somehow six procedures. At number five, between direct review and database, that makes database is different than direct review. Of course, the first thing, as what I have explained, try to search the keywords from search engine and academic database, and then look at the title, whether the title is relevant to what you're going to to your FIP or dissertation, and look at the abstract of the materials, and then try to understand the structure or the outline of that published work, and then start to scope out the aims, methods, and findings. You can see both. The findings can be positive, can be negatives as well. So that is where the element of critical thinking will be here. And then number five, for direct review, identify the relevancy of the published work and then arrange them according to your thesis context. So remember, we learned about how to create the structure or the outline of your thesis, and then maybe you can have subsection under under all these sections, and then you can start to arrange these published work according to the thesis context, according to different section, for example. And last but not least, write and paraphrase. So paraphrase based on your interpretation and critical analysis, write and paraphrase directly after you have done procedure 1 until 5. But for database creation, like after you scope out the aims, method, and findings, you create Excel sheets. This is what I do. Create Excel sheet, uh, and then you have to put all this information, and including details on the author's title, year, journal, and relevancy to context. So I will explain that one. I have one example. Last but not least, you write and paraphrase. As a student, and it's not just as a student, even as now, I think having a database, create a database for your own literature reviews, actually it will speed up the writing process. So I always encourage for you to choose database creation. So the first method, which is direct review, I think it's actually applicable for both, but for database creation, definitely you have to create Excel sheet. I will touch on that later. So I have three examples. So example one will be on review article. Example two will be on research article. So example three will be conference proceeding. So I have three examples for each method. But I use the same paper, by the way. So, okay. So the example one, which is this review article, the title of it, Artificial Intelligence Techniques for Photovoltaic Applications, a review. So it's a review paper. It has artificial intelligence techniques. Okay. So one of the prediction techniques. It is applicable for photovoltaic. So means that, okay, this is relevant to my context, to my FYP context. The journal, check the journal. Progress in Energy and Combustion Science. Then you can go to Shimago and search the name of this journal. Then, okay, so it is under quartile 1, under the subject subject of chemical engineering. Okay. And then the SGR score about 6.78, which is good. The next one you will see you have to scope out this the keywords. What are the keywords available for this review article? It has artificial intelligence, neural network, fuzzy logic, and then hybrid system, meteorological data, modeling, forecasting, optimization, photovoltaic systems. Okay, these keywords are relevant to my thesis context, which is good. Then you go to the abstract. So the abstract here, of course, you have from as I said, the abstract will tell you the introduction part of it, the main context, the main body, and then what are the things that they want to highlight. So if you read down here, you will see at the last part of the abstract, it says, the paper outlines an understanding of how AI systems operate by way of presenting a number of problems in photovoltaic system application. So for problems presented including three areas: forecasting and modeling of meteorological data, sizing of photovoltaic system and modeling, simulation and control, and etc. So you can see this is actually the things that they want to highlight in this paper. So this is the main intention of having this paper. Then you have to go to the outline of this review article. Then you, of course, it will start with the abstract keywords. So you can see there is a consistency or the similarity of this outline with with the one that I told you. So it has introduction part, and then they start to touch on the topics, and then it must have the conclusion. But what are the things that you can scoop out for you to review under section 3, meteorological data? So you want to know what are the parameters to be included in your prediction model. Second, you want to know the another parameter, which is the sizing of the PV system. So it's very important for you. And section 5, the modeling, simulation, and controlling of PV system. So the application of prediction models to the PV system. So this is another section that you need to read thoroughly and scope out for you to prepare a literature review. And maybe you have to read a bit more on the conclusion part. So I give you another example, second example, which is research article. So this research article, the title of it, Artificial Neural Networks for Power Output Forecasting from Bifacial Solar PV System with Enhanced Building Roof Surface Albedo. Okay, somehow the topic, okay, it's close. It is relevant to your thesis context. And I check on Journal of Building Engineering. And then you go to Shimago and check this one. Okay, it is under Q1, which is good. And the SGR score about 1.16, less than the previous one, but still good because it is under Q1. And usually for research articles or research paper, they have highlights. So the highlights are where you can see the novelty or the originality of the findings from this work. So what have they highlight here? Surface habit. They want to see the performance of this solar panel by changing the surface albedo. They want to see they highlight on integrating bifacial solar PV system integrated with cool roof technology. They use ANN. They found that ANN based BPV power is the most accurate model to forecast. And then they found that albedo enhancement can increase annual output by between 7.75 to 14.96%. And another one, yes, another one, I mean, they report another one based on monthly power outputs. Then you can see the keywords. So what are the keywords under this paper? Solar, it has PV there. They use ANN. They use performance analysis. Okay, it's relevant. The next one, you can look from the abstract. For the research article, somehow you can see the main, of course, the introduction part of it. They have the main body, and then they have the conclusion. So the first, I think the first five sentences will highlight the main intention of the work. So the objectives of it, what are things that they have evaluated, what things that they have considered in their work, and somehow will tell and then the middle part, you can see the methods that they have used, and the last part, the conclusion part, highlight the findings and the results as well. And then if you go to the outline here, you can see start with the introduction, and then the methodology and materials modeling, and then artificial neuro ANN predictive model, and the results and discussion and conclusion. So you have to read thoroughly these highlighted sections, and then based on that, then you can start to prepare a literature review. Another example, I just take from, or just one example from conference proceeding. So the title is A Simple Experimental Prediction Model of PV Power for DC Microgrid. Okay, the topic is relevant to your thesis context. But if you check from the Shimago, it doesn't it doesn't assign under any quartile. So it means that it's out of the league. It's out of the Q1 to Q4 leagues. And then you can have a look on the keywords. So the keywords are like this: predictive models, okay, which is relevant; mathematical model; meteorology, which is relevant; photovoltaic power system, which is good; prediction model, photovoltaic power prediction, which is good. Okay, it's relevant. And then you look at the abstract. So it I mean, the first two sentences here is actually highlight the main intention of the work. So photovoltaic PV power prediction is necessary for dealing with oh, sorry, this is the introduction, sorry. And then this is the intention of the work. So they aim to propose to use a simple experimental prediction model of a PV panel, and then they try to compare with the other two published models, which is linear power model and single diode model. So they will compare the simple experimental model with these two models. And then the last part, they will last part of the abstract will tell about what, I mean, their model somehow prove the reliability of the proposal. So this is the main findings of what they have done. And then from the outline, you can see the introduction, and then the overview on the DC microgrid system, PV panel models, and the experimental comparison, discussion, and result analysis and conclusion. I highlight to check on this, and these are the sections that you need to read thoroughly, and then you can prepare a direct literature review based on that. But as I said, I always recommend to go for second method. It's almost the same. You will like scope out all this information, but you just have to put in this table. So you create an Excel data sheet. You have the title of the paper. You have the names of the author, the title of the journal, maybe the link to the journal ranking, the type, the date and the year. What are the aims and the objective of this paper? What is the method that is being carried out, and then the findings and discussion, positive, whether the results are positive or negative, any advantage values or disadvantage drawback side of the findings, for example, the potential aspect of it, conclusion, and then you can have this relevancy to thesis context. If yes, then you click yes. If not, then says no. If let's say it's yes, then which section do you think that this paper will be put? So this is just example. So I will choose to have these paper to be cited under section 2.5, which is recent prediction models of PV power output, for example. So based on this, to be honest, it makes it's actually it speed up, or it's quite easy for me to kind of creating a literature review out of this, to write a review of this published work. So this is what I have written based on this information. And what you can see the one that is highlighted in green, somehow the intention of the study, aims and objectives. You somehow, this is like very common it's very common to have these three elements in your literature review. It must start with the intention of the study, maybe the aims or the objectives of the work. Of course, you have to have the name of the author, and then you have to highlight the relevant findings of this work to your thesis context. And last but not least, you can have the what is concluded from the work, or you can highlight the potential aspects of it. Okay, for example, here for the intention, so Malit and Kalogiro 2008 systematically reviewed on various artificial intelligence techniques which are applicable for PV system, including meteorological data prediction and modeling. That is the intention of the work. And then on the findings, so from their findings, applying RNN and wavelet to forecast electricity output from the PV systems have shown the MAPE, which is the mean absolute percentage error, is lower than 5.5%, with the correlation coefficient between 95% and 97%. In terms of weather forecasting, RBFN was reported to produce the most accurate prediction. So that is the highlighted findings of this work. Next one, you can highlight the potential. So the potential of using the AI techniques, less computational effort as compared to physical modeling techniques, and it's very promising for intelligent PV system development. Okay, so we go to second examples. Having these Excel tables and based on what you have scoped out from based on what you have scoped out from this example 2, then you will put everything in this table. Yeah, so this is the literature. Based on this data, it is this spreadsheet, it will help me to have this review. This is very early. It's not perfect, but at least okay, you can see at least there is. So it's almost the same as the previous example. I will start I will start by having the intention of the work, or the aims, objective, the proposed method, and then I will touch on the relevant findings, and then I touch on the potential. For example 3, the same. So this is the one, and I will have the intention of the study at the early part of it, and then I put the relevant findings. Since that this paper is a conference proceeding, somehow I found the limitation of the work, and the results are not very convincing. So I highlight the somehow the negative, so the negative aspect of it. So I critically highlight the negative aspect of it. And then the last one I mentioned about the potential. So I just touch on just a little bit on the relevant the findings here. Due to simplification, only indoor tests were considered, while the temperature coefficient Y was determined, which caused the model error range from acceptable to highly unacceptable values. They concluded that the calculation of PV cell temperature is mainly considered to improve the model accuracy. Then I continue with the potential, where having the calculation of the PV cell temperature should be measured from the ambient temperature, solar irradiance, and should incorporate the PV aging phenomena as well. So you can see, based on these three preliminary literature review, I just use like a free plagiarism like checking version, which is paper O. Definitely you have to use your own what is provided by your institution. So based on example 1, based on the review article, from my preliminary literature review, the similarity shown here about 12.3%. And then for the second paper, second example on the research article, it gives me about 10.4%. Well, for the conference policy, most probably might be because this paper is not very much, not many papers cited this paper. Somehow it found the similarity of 0%, and the originality is about 100%. But of course, maybe paper oil is not very, accurate in terms of checking the similarity. I believe that what your institution is providing is actually better. So from here, somehow I want to give you an example of a complete one shot subsection. So this is a suggested. This is what I suggest. For I mean, this is this suggested subsection under my literature review, section 2.6, for example, A1 prediction models of PV solar outputs for building application. So this is the title. So E1 is the preliminary literature review based on the example one, and this is for example two and example three. And you have to start having your own words at the beginning of it. So this is your own word. For example, various application of AI techniques were reported in predicting the energy and power outputs from PV panel across region and location. So you need to have your own words to mix with the literature review. Okay. Then what you're going to do is you combine everything in one statement under section 2.6. And you need to kind of paraphrase or revise some. So remember, earlier, this is your word. Various application of artificial intelligence techniques were reported in predicting the energy and power outputs from PV panel across regions and locations. Then I change a bit here. There is a remarkable trend of using AI models in replacing physical, computational, and numerical models to predict. So you always have to paraphrase and rewrite your statement, revise it until you can find the original. You can increase the originality of your work, and you can minimize the similarity with the published works. And I did some changes and revise at the middle part of it and the rest. And what I found when I put in paper owl, it reduced the similarity from 11 or 10% to 7.3%, and the originality is about 92.7%, I mean, which is better as compared to before. So under UITM, of course, UITM it has its own subscription to check the similarity from your report. So you can use our original, which is actually is one. It's the subsidiary company under Turning In. So you use this. Definitely, it will help you to detect the plagiarism from your report. So I always suggest to go to UITM search engine and database. Yeah. So I think we can conclude today's session, by the way. So what we have learned from this webinar, the first thing first, academic writing, it has its own structure or form, and it must be accepted academically and scientifically. And we already know how to differentiate different types of academic writing. We learn about academic books, book chapters. We learn about theses or FYP dissertation report. We learn about the form of research article, review articles, conference proceedings. Yeah, we know how to differentiate them, and we also learn about how to use or to cite them in correct sections. Okay, understand the thesis outline. Of course, I believe that you learn about the outline of a thesis and the contents, the contents for each of the section before you start writing up. And then I give you some tips to make your academic writing more effective. So try to follow the tips. And then the next one, very important for you to establish ideas. Of course, in order for you to start writing an academic to start writing the statement, definitely you need to have ideas. And then when you generate all these ideas, you will start finding keywords and use these keywords and you start research. based on these keywords, of course, you want to find supporting data or literature for your work. Yeah, what I suggest is to use my mapping. It helped me. I'm not sure whether it is applicable to you, but it helps me to produce my own work. And then, of course, there is no smooth sailing, by the way, to write your FYP. So you should expect unexpected hurdles, which may, hinder some of your work progress. It will limit your project potential. So you have to expect that. There's no perfect thesis, perfect FYP in the world. And utilize the 300% of the search engine from your institution, the database that are subscribed under your institution, and try to search the keywords that you have generated from your proposed work. Okay. The next one, try to understand what is okay. We learn about literature review, and we learn about how to make your literature review is effectively conducted, and we learn also why literature review is very important for your work. And then I suggest to have, I explain about two different methods: one, direct review and writing method, and another one is database creation method. So as a student, as I said, I I I suggest you to use database creation method because it will speed up the process of writing the report. So I suggest to have the Excel sheet, and you can have the suggested tabs, like having the names of the authors, the title, the aims and objectives, and try to scoop out all this information and put in these tabs. Yeah. And last but not least, keep rewrite and paraphrase, so that you can reduce the similarity of your thesis with the published works. So I think, yes, so this is actually the last part for the conclusion, and I do some references. You can click on it and go and read further, and I believe I can stop presenting. And thank you very much for everyone's attention. If let's say you have question, please, I always open. I suppose maybe in between, if you let's say you have question, you can always ask directly. But since that maybe I was too focused on the on the presentation, so I'm so sorry about it. If let's say you have questions, please let me know. Anyone? Raiha?
All right. Thank you, Dr.
Yes.
Diana, for the informative, insightful sharing. We
Okay.
can move on to the Q&A session. We've
Yeah.
provided slides of the questions so that we can read them together for you to answer it
Okay.
later.
Okay,
All
no
right.
problem.
So let's put up the slides now.
Thank you, Akmal.
Now, for the first question, it asks what are the essential skills for academic writing? So maybe Dr. Diana can answer the first question.
I think I've already highlight. I mean, if okay, I think I can share back. What I mean based on the conclusion. So I let me just share it. So from the conclusion of it, I believe that I will definitely I can share this slide in PDF to Raiha. So Raiha could maybe can provide to students. These are the tips that I can recommend. First thing first, definitely you have to know the structure of the form. The outline of your thesis is very important. It's very important to know that. And then follow the tips that I give you to make your academic writing effective. As I said, we can go to that slide again. Here, the title must be captivating. It must highlight the originality or the intention of what you want, the intention of the work. One, you must have a good abstract, because from the title it will create interest to the readers, and to read further, then they will read the abstract. Then go to abstract, and then you must clearly define the short form in abbreviation. And then you must have clear introduction. aims and objective. You must make sure that it is very clear. The narrative of it must be well structured, and then try to use straightforward language. Okay, and then you have to aid your writing with visuals, with flowcharts, figures, examples, and then the references should come from high quality journals or books. And I always suggest to use, high ranking journals for your publication. And then, of course, as I said, once you know that, I suggest for you to utilize the search engine and database that are subscribed under your institution. I know that some of us, even me myself, I always Google, have the keywords and then I Google. But then try to use this search engine because it will lead you to better published works. And most of the works are, are well recognized and well recognized by academic committee. So try to use proper search engine and database to make it effective. And then I suggest to use database creation method. So you create your own Excel spreadsheet, have different tabs, and then scoop out all the information from the papers and try to put in that tabs. And then you can write your thesis clearly, and then in the fastest speed. I can tell you it works for me. So that's what I can suggest. I think I can stop sharing. Yes, and any other question?
All right, so for the next question,
Mm-hmm.
maybe Akmal can share back the slides again.
Okay.
All right, so next question. A student
Mm-hmm.
asks, what is the most important aspect that students often leave out in writing academic articles?
The most important aspect that students often leave out in writing academic. Leave out, what does it mean by leave out?
Maybe like maybe what the student asks is like, that what are the tendency that students left out when writing articles, but not knowing that that part is
Ah,
very important.
okay. Yes, okay, I know. Okay. I have discussed this with Raiha before. Don't skip your literature review. Don't skip that. I know some students, they already know what kind of they already know the method that they want to propose. So they tend to be very biased to that method. But your literature review definitely will help to how to say, it is a supporting data. Okay, your literature review is your secondary data that support your method statement. So that's why I believe literature review is very important, and you have I remember that I suggest for you to have literature gap by the end of your literature review section. That you have to highlight what things are lacking from the published works, and that is where you have to fill in the gap. So your fill in the gap is the one that you're going to propose in your method. So don't skip your literature review as well as the introduction part. Make sure that your introduction part, it must clearly define your problems. So sometimes I found from the final year report of the students, they don't really discuss the real the problem. They don't really highlight the problems that they want to solve in the introduction. So that is very important. So your problem statement will lead to the motivation of the work. Then it will lead you to produce a good literature review. Then it will lead you to propose your method. So don't skip that process. So that's the advice that I can give to all of you.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Okay.
So for the next question,
Yep.
uh, what is next question, Akmal? Okay, never mind. I just read the questions.
Okay.
Okay. Another question by a student. He asks, what are some of the strategies for improving the clarity and conciseness of academic writing?
I think Akmal, you can make go go to the like the previous slide. I think can you click on the previous slide?
Yeah,
What are some Okay. Yep. Oh, the
you
next slide,
skip
please.
the, yeah.
Next slide. Okay. Yeah. What are some strategies for improving the clarity and conciseness of my academic writing? I think I think this is the one that I highlight. Keep on revising and keep on rephrasing or paraphrasing your works. As I said, there is no smooth sailing in preparing your FYP. There's always things that there are always hurdles. There are always how to say things that can hinder your work. By the way, so keep on improving. Even okay, even at the very last minute, sometimes you still can revise. You still need to revise your introduction part, despite that you start to write your academic writing. You start to write the introduction part of your thesis, but you still can always, you still need to revise maybe some parts of it. So what I can tell you is to update, to revise, and try to paraphrase the word to, of course, until you get of course, until you will see that your FYP is very original. And another thing, I think I mentioned, but if you go to each of the published work, try to scope out very important things. You have to identify the outline. You have to identify what is the main intention of the work, what is the main what is highlighted, what are the main findings, what is concluded from this work. Find the or find the important findings, the interesting findings from each of the published work that you reviewed. Based on that, then it will definitely help to improve your work. It will improve to improve to highlight the original aspect of your thesis. I believe that that is actually very important. I'm not sure whether I answer the question correctly, but I will try my best. Yeah.
All right, moving on to the next question. Akmal, can you move on to this question that I shared with you
Oh,
in the WhatsApp?
how can I effectively organize my research and ideas in my academic writing to create a clear and cohesive argument? Organize my research and ideas. Mind map. I don't know. I mean, to be honest, there is no yes and no answer. I always make how to say, I suggest based on my experience. So um I start if you see, okay, I think I can share my slide again one more time. So definitely I will share this one later to everyone. So if you go to here, yes, if you go to here, everything, okay, an academic statement, it should start with ideas. Collage all the ideas in one blank paper. Maybe make it in a mind mapping. Establish keywords. That is number one. Then you can see all these ideas in one. So I suggest to have all this first as the first step before you go deep into what is the main intention, what the problem that what kind of problem that I want to solve, and then maybe what kind of methodology that I will carry out for my work. And then and then of course the keywords, it's very important. Then you start searching and follow my suggestion as well, as I highlighted. Go for method 2. Create database like this, scope out the information and try to put it in here. Then you start to write and keep on writing. Don't forget about it. I mean, to be honest, this is the one that I always highlight. Keep rewrite and paraphrase. Keep writing it because uh I don't know how to say it. I mean, keep practicing. It will definitely help you to improve your work. So I'm not sure if I answered this one correctly. So any like other question maybe? The next one.
Actually,
Yeah,
actually, we've come to
the last
the end.
portion. At
Yeah,
the
we
end
come
of
to
the
the last
session.
question.
Okay.
Yeah, because due to the limited of time, we unfortunately need to end our session here.
No problem, no problem. Yeah, I
All right.
understand.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Diana, for answering them. And also thank you, participants, for actively taking part in the session. And before we end today's webinar, I would like to invite all participants present today to switch on your cameras for a photography session with our speaker, Dr. Diana. So students may switch on your cameras. All right, students, please open your cameras. We want to take a photography session.
Mesti housemate tu satu ramai.
Okay, HR ready?
Kejap, nak buang background.
Oh, okay.
Ya ramai tu bawa background
Boleh,
dulu.
Okay, everyone ready? 3, 2, 1. Okay, done. Thank you.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have finally come to the end of this webinar on effective academic writing. Once again, I would like to thank our speaker, Dr. Diana, for the informative sharing. Thank you to Dr. Raiha and Dr. Hashima as well for organizing this insightful webinar. Hope everyone has learned a lot throughout the event. And lastly, thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. We truly appreciate your presence and support.
Yes, thank you everyone. Thank you for having me and thank you for listening. I will share the